There is a time on World of Tanks where I would have thought that this result that we're about to witness on World of Tanks is impossible, genuinely impossible. However, it's happened and you're about to witness it. Now then, of course, in this replay we are watching Balantidium, who is going to be having the most insane spotting damage game that you'll probably see on Prokhorovka, even when we compare it to T100 gameplays where they're just being an absolute nuisance. Even when you compare it to EBR 105s, this replay is quite possibly the highest spotting damage game in World of Tanks ever on Prokhorovka. Now, how is this made achievable? Well, it is down to the fact that we have the Manticore, which is of course one of the nicest spotting tanks. It's very low profile, and of course when you play it in the correct way, where you're sat in this bush, of course everyone knows this bush. It's the common place where light tanks sit, where they just basically abuse the spotting mechanics in World of Tanks, and this is where kind of these sort of games happen. Well, at least they start off happening, and you are seeing that in this replay. Of course, it's very, very boring to watch, so we're not going to go through all of the spotting damage here as we go through this replay. Now then, what makes Balantidium's gameplay so good? Well, it is just the fact that a lot of players would get bored, and of course that is something that you'll see throughout World of Tanks, is that people genuinely get bored very easily. They make rash, snap choice decisions that always end up badly, and when you're not one of those players, when you are thinking logically and you're able to spot people like the AMX 13105, the TVP, who were just that little bit too impatient, then that is why he's able to have already racked up 2,214 spotting damage within this, and it will only go in one direction as he spots the T95, who of course he's basically sat here for his team. He is the spotter. He is not going to be dealing very much damage, if any at all, within this replay. Now, you're seeing here that the T95 is approaching. There's a UDESI spotted, and for all intents and purposes, he is basically the furthest forward tank, and this is the perfect setup in terms of the way in which you can maximise your spotting damage, because basically his entire team are sat in one square. We always love that when you're going for spotting damage, and of course there's no one on the other side except from this STB, who appears to have come up against very little opposition, and it looks like the majority of the enemy team are actually in this side, albeit that they are trying to blind fire here, Balantidium here. Now, there's an IS-3, of course. 2 tiers below, when they're spotted out in the open, doesn't typically go very well, and I'm expecting this 1,500 hit points to disappear very quickly, just like the STRVs did. Now, of course, the IS-3 is now pushing closer and closer, so Balantidium's probably thinking he needs to make sure that this guy's out of the game, but don't worry, his team have got his back for once, and this is what happens on Prokhorovka when your team do actually get your back. You're seeing here, however, the lack of gun elevation with the Manticore, so it's pretty much the only good reason why you'd go in this bush is to get spotting damage. The tank itself is not particularly it doesn't lend itself very much towards, I guess, going for particularly lots of damage. The DPM on the Manticore sucks, pretty much one of the worst in the game. And so you basically have to rely upon your actual spotting capabilities and play it like that, which, you know, makes sense. It is a light tank. It is primarily there for your team to be able to spot. So what I guess we're seeing here from this replay is 8,300 spotting damage already. And I guess what most players fail to do on Prokhorovka is get the right matchup. Don't get me wrong, this is a very situational matchup whereby, you know, your team have to be there to support you to get any spotting damage at all, which of course his team are. You have to place yourself in the right position, you have to set up your crew in the right way, and of course you can maximise the chances of you actually doing well by just improving the amount of kind of camo perks you have on your crew, adding in both binocs and camo net. It's all going to help you massively. And now what you're seeing is some movement. This is the first movement that Balantidium has pretty much done since the beginning of the game. And this is exactly what you need to do. In the scenario where you've basically had the entire enemy team's spotting forces removed, it can be possible for you to advance. And this is where the game completely changes for Ballantidium. He goes from having just 8,000 in a mere matter of minutes up to 12,217. And don't forget, this is not going to stop here. If you saw the thumbnail, which I'm sure you did, you saw exactly how much spotting damage he's managed to do. And this is the typical route that a lot of these players will be taking, where essentially you're going along this line. You can see here he does actually get spotted for the first time in the game by the SU-130PM. Puts a nice round into the 110. Unfortunately, doesn't actually get any damage, but don't worry, he spotted the entire enemy team, and therefore they're all been taken out by his teammates who have kind of pushed up with him, which of course yet again is a scenario that doesn't happen very often, and hence why he's been able to pick up 15,000 spotting damage. And his first shot of the game, 357 damage done. He has managed to have the highest spotting damage game I've ever seen in World of Tanks. 16,000 spotting damage within this result, which, yeah, is unbelievable to say the least. And of course, in a pretty quick fashion as well. It's probably one of the quickest Manticore games and spotting damage games that I've seen. If you enjoyed the replays here with Ballantidium, of course, let me know in the comment section down below, and of course like and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more replays and talking about more replays. Why don't you have a look at one of the greatest carries I've ever seen in the FE201 Chieftain, which was just an insane carry. Very, very good, and that'll be on the right hand side of the screen. And if you're interested in a Cranvong just doing absolute bits in Westfield, then of course take a look at the left hand side, and I hope that you'll join me there. If not, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you there. Goodbye.